Welcome back to the Jayda InStitches show, and welcome back to the 2023 Fair Isle Style Calendar Blanket Project. It's May, and this month we are home sweet home. I love houses. For those of you who did the folk art calendar blanket along with us, you'll know how excited I got the month we did the town. Well, this month is no exception. I have opted for the same uniform little house repeating across my blanket, but there are a lot of things you can do to this little image to make it uniquely yours. I have 5 samplers to show you today, and that is just the start. So if you really like yanking out the scraps and having fun with this month's images, or all of the images we've done so far, you're gonna have a lot of fun this month. I want to say, before we get started, that I used, I think, about 10 to 11 yards per spool for my house color. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the material section shortly. But I ran out on 2 of them. Now, I'm not super exact when I measure out my spool yardage. I kind of eyeball it, but 4 of them are fine, 2 of them are short by about 6 inches. So if you find that your tension tends to be a little looser than mine, then I would recommend adding at least 1 more yard than I use for your spools. But it depends on the actual house style you're going to do, and we're going to talk about that. So I also want to say that this month's pattern is now available in our Etsy shop, as are the previous month's patterns. All the patterns come with a graph, and there are 4 other Fair Isle Style Plus patterns available in our shop as well that you might want to check out if you want to continue to personalize or elongate your blanket as we progress through the year. We'll link to our Etsy shop down below, and a gigantic thank you to everybody who has popped over and picked up a pattern in the last little while. We really appreciate your support of our show. Okay, let's grab our hooks, we'll grab our yarn, we'll grab our calendar blankets, we'll head on over to the craft table, and we will stitch up a sweet little home sweet home of a town together. For our Fair Isle house, you are going to need the same yarn you've been using all along. For me, that's a 100% acrylic yarn, size 4 medium weight. You want around 105 yards at the max for your A color, so I'm using white for that. And the amount of B color you're going to want will vary depending on the style of house you do. So at the smallest amount for the house, you're going to want around 60 yards in total, and that's about 10 yards per spool. At the max, you're going to want around 72 yards of B, or 12 yards per spool, and that's if you make your house all one color. It'll be a lot less if you want to make your house and your roof 2 different colors, but I'll explain a bit about that a little more in a moment. You want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, the same hook we've been using all along. I'm using a 5.5 millimeter, also known as an I or a 9 in the US. And of course, you want your blanket. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. As usual, I recommend you make yourself a sampler, especially for this month, because there are so many ways you can make your little houses. You might just want to make an entire town. I'm going to be using the open roof concept. This is what I'm calling it, the open roof concept, all one color. So that is going to be my little house. But of course, you could make the little house with a closed roof. So the whole house roof is solid. And this is where you're going to need the 72 yards in total of your B color if you're going to make the house with the solid roof. But of course, you could also make the house with a different colored roof. This is an open version of the house with a different colored roof, so you'd need around 30 yards total of house color, which would be B, and then another 30 yards total of roof color, which would be your color C. The nice thing is that you don't need an extra set of spools. Once you're done with the house color and your spools, you would rewrap your spools with the house color and just keep going. You could, of course, fill in the roof color, make it a closed roof, 2 color. And I've got 2 other options here. So I actually inverted the house graph so that the windows and the doors are open as opposed to being sort of closed, and the whole house is a solid color. And I made this one 2-tone. And I did the same thing here where I made the house windows and door in the reverse, so they're open, and the whole house is one color. Mr. InStitches thinks this looks a little bit like a mushroom, and I have to agree, it's kind of cute. But those are some options for today's graph. There are so many of them, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Let's take a look at the graph. Of course, we will have a small version of this in the top right-hand corner throughout the video. You can pause the video at any time and refer to it if you're moving along faster than me or if you're moving along a little slower than me. Same thing as usual. We are looking at the graph. This represents one full repeat of the graph. We're going to be doing 6 repeats. There are 20 stitches across. It is 11 rows high. Each of these boxes represents one of those 20 stitches, and each of these rows represents one of the rows. So row 1 and row 11 are solid A color. In this case, I'm using white. There are 2 identical rows. That is row 4 and row 5. They're absolutely identical. We'll talk about that when we get there. And like I said, if you want to make your house and roof 2 different colors, you can load your spools with your house color between 5 and 7 yards for the house color, and when you're done with the house, you'll just reload those same spools with your roof color. And your roof color, if you're making an open roof, will be roughly 5 to 7 yards. If you're making the solid colored roof, make it a little more juicy, like 9 to 10 yards, just to be on the safe side, because you are carrying a little bit of color as you go. All right, let's get started. When I left off last month, I placed my little safety pin here on my working loop so that it wouldn't unravel on me. So I'm just going to pull that up. So I've got my working loop back. I'm going to take my safety pin out, put it aside, and I'll be using that again later. All right. Hook in. Now normally I would chain 2 and turn. I'm just going to twist my blanket. So I'm looking at the side that I'm going to start on. I'm just going to twist the corner of it. I'm chaining 2. That's the chain 2 that begins every row. Now I turn my blanket and you can see that I'm at the beginning. This chain 2 counts as a double crochet. This is the first stitch represented on our graph right here. Right-handed, you're working this way. Left-handed, you always start on the opposite side of the righties, but this is a mirror image picture, so even if you accidentally start on the same side of the graph every single row, it's okay. You're not going to end up with a funny looking house. So all of row 1 is A, meaning every one of those 20 stitches represented in the graph is the same color. There is no color change. There is no use of the spools for the first row. So let's just start double crocheting in every stitch all the way across with your color A. For me, that's white. That'll be 120 stitches when we're done row 1, and I'll see you at the end. Remember, when you get to the end of a row, your last double crochet is worked into the top of the chain 2 from the previous row, because we need to count that as a double crochet. That's 120 stitches, or 6 repeats of the 20 stitch graph. Chain 2, turn your work. Doesn't matter which direction you turn. I know some people ask that. Whatever works best for you and doesn't tangle up all your yarn. Let's look at the graph. Row 2, we introduce our spools. Row 2 is very easy. The first 3 stitches in the repeat are A, the next 14 are B, followed by 3 in A. So 3A, 14B, 3A, repeat. Our chain 2 counts as a double crochet, so that's the first one. We're going to work 2 more. When we start the stitch before the color change, you work the first half of it, grab that first spool. I'm going to start with a slip knot. Now I'm using a dark blue, but by this point I think you all kind of understand how this looks. It's double crochets throughout. There's no fancy anything. We finish off that double crochet with our color change. I'm going to work over top of my short tail. You're also carrying your A color, so I like to lay those down on top of my stitches. And then you double crochet into the next stitch as normal. And that is the first of 14. I like to tug down on my loose strings a little bit just to make sure that everything moves comfortably together and I don't end up with any gapping. So let's do 14 in B. I've got 13 in B. I'm working stitch number 14. It's the stitch before the color change, so I work the first half. And before I use my A color, which I've been carrying all along, I'm just going to tug on it gently. Not too much. I want to make sure that it's not showing through or kind of gapping out anywhere on the back. Looks good. I'm going to finish that stitch with A. I am dropping B. That is all I need for B for this repeat of the graph. And then 3 more double crochet in A, and that finishes the first repeat of row 2 of the graph. So that's 20 stitches. It's represented by these 20 boxes along row 2. When you're done with a spool, wind it up nice and tightly and just pinch it off at the top so it doesn't want to tangle up with its friends. And then you start all over again. 3A, 14B, 3A, you're working in your second spool. You drop your spool at the end of the 14th stitch. Switch back to A, work 3. Remember, the stitch before the color change is always the first half worked, and then you come in with the new color to finish that stitch. There we go. I like to tug down on my A a little bit. You're carrying your colors, carrying A under B as you work, and you're just going to repeat that all the way across. That is 6 full repeats of the graph. So I've got my 14B in between 3A on either side of it. It should sort of sit directly atop your tulip from the previous month. And all of my spools started and finished on the back. So I started and finished them all on the back of the blanket as opposed to the front. Doesn't matter, like I said, what side they start and finish on for the first row, but they all need to start and finish on the same side for the row they're on. So mine started on the back, they finish on the back. And then I finished my A. I'm going to chain 2 and turn. I'm going to grab my blanket and slowly turn it. And now all of my spools are on the front of my blanket, and they're going to start and finish on the front for row 3. So speaking of row 3, let's take a look at the graph. Row 3, right, we're over here, left, we're over there. 3A to begin, 1B, 4A, 4B, 4A, 1B, 3A, repeat. So 3A, 1B, 4A, 4B, 4A, 1B, 3A, repeat. That is row 3. Let's get to it. My chain 2 counts as the first double crochet in white. I double crochet the next stitch completely. I start the third stitch. I'm switching now to my B color. B is going to come directly above where the last stitch was. But there is just the slightest little bit of a lean here. You can really see that dark against the light. So I want to make sure that I grab underneath it when I go to work the first stitch. So I'm working over top of A. I'm just going to slip my hook underneath that carried yarn and then double crochet into the first or the next stitch. Now I only need 1B in this case, so I'm going to drop B. I'm going to pick up A and finish that stitch with A. Then it's 4A, I'm working over top of B. I start the fourth stitch in A. I drop A. I pick B back up and I finish it. So I've got my 3A, 1B, 4A, now it's 4B for the little front door. I'm working over top of A. I start the fourth stitch with B. I'm going to tug on my A just to make sure it's not bunching up. Always good to stop, take a look on the other side. See, it's sort of bunching out here. So I'm just going to tug on it, and then it largely disappears. There we go. So I start that fourth stitch with B, drop B, switch back to A, finish it. And now it's 4 more stitches in A. I start that fourth stitch with A, drop my A, tug gently on my B just to make sure it's not bulging out behind the stitches there. Finish it with B. I work one more stitch in B, but it's one stitch before a color change, so I really only work the first half of it with B. Drop B completely, that's the end of that spool, switch back to A, finish that stitch, and work 3 more double crochet all in A. And then I want to repeat, but before I continue, I'm just going to put that down, roll up what's left on my spool, tuck it in nice and tight, and it shouldn't dance around on me. So there we go. There is the first 20 stitches. 3A, 1B, 4A, 4B, 4A, 1B, 3A, and repeat. And we've got the little foundation to our house already on the go. I'll see you at the end of the row. That is row 3 complete. We've got the foundation of our house, our walls, and the bottom of our door started. All of my spools started and finished on the front of my blanket. My last double crochets worked into the top of the chain 2. We chain 2, turn carefully. All of my spools are now moving back to the back side of my blanket. And it's going to be like this, back and forth for the rest of the graph. Row 4 and row 5 are identical, so let's take a look at them. Row 4, righties, you start over here, lefties, you start over there, but once again, it's a mirror image pattern, so it doesn't really matter which side you're approaching it from. Row 4 and row 5 are identical. We work 3A, 1B, 1A, 2B, 1A, 4B, 1A, 2B, 1A, 1B, 3A. Repeat. And rows 4 and 5 are identical. So we are establishing our windows, we're continuing to work on our doors, and of course the walls of our house. So let's do one together. That chain 2 counts as a double crochet. I'm going to double crochet with white or A into the next stitch. Start one in the 3rd stitch, drop A, unspool my first spool, finish that stitch with the color change for B, start my wall. I'm also going to flip over. Remember, you're always looking for any carried color opportunities. I'm going to slip that carry over top of my hook so that I can finish the double crochet by grabbing that carry. I'm going to work the first half of it, switch back to A, and finish it. So there's my first double crochet in B. It's the wall continuing, and I grabbed the little carry from the back before I continued. So always sort of just take a quick check when you're bringing your spool back into play. You want to make sure you're working over top of any color carries, or reaches as I like to call them. We are back to A for a single double crochet. So we're going to work the first half of that, drop it, pick B back up, finish it. Working over top of A, I'm going to work 2 double crochet in B. This is the little window getting established. Work the first half of that second double crochet in B, drop B, switch back to A, tug down on B. I'm carrying B now. I'm going to work 1 double crochet in A, so I start it, drop A, tug a little bit on B, finish that double crochet. So you can see I've got wall, side of house, the window started, another side of house. Now we're back into the door, so I'm carrying A, 4 double crochet in B, start that 4th double crochet, drop B, tug on A, finish it with A, tug on B, carrying B for 1 stitch. So there's a little bit of the front of the house, drop A before I finish that, switch back to B, 2 in B for the bottom of the window, drop B, switch back to A to finish that stitch. That completes the window. 1 stitch in A, I only work the first part of it, drop A, switch back to B, 1 more stitch with B, work the first half of it, drop B completely, switch back to A, and then it's 3 double crochet with A to finish the 20 stitch graph. And there we go. So I'm going to pull up on that, and I'm going to pause, tug on that B just a little bit, roll my B up into my spool, and it stays on the back. So it starts and finishes on the back, and there we go. You can pull it out a little bit. So it's 3A, 1B, 1A, 2B, 1A, 4B, 1A, 2B, 1A, 1B, 3A. That's the 20 stitches of the row. You're going to repeat that 6 times, chain 2, turn, and repeat that entire row again, because row 4 and 5 are identical. So I will see you at the end of row 5. That's row 4 and row 5 complete. Row 4 and 5 are identical, so you should have the full bottom of your house now. Your windows, both full windows and your full door complete. And you want 6 repeats of those. Make sure that all of your little spools are on the same side of the blanket that they started the row on, wherever that is. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, turn our work nice and careful. The bigger your blanket gets, the more this kind of needs to be a careful process. There we go. And now we're on to row 6. So let's take a look. Row 6 is pretty easy. We have 2 color changes only. 3A, 1B, 12A, 1B, 3A, repeat. So you're just basically finishing off the walls of your house. The facing of your house is all in A, and then of course you've got your 3A on either side. So this is the last row that you're using the house color if you're switching up colors for your roof. So just so you know, this is the last row of the actual house. We begin the roof. I'm doing all of mine in the same color, but if you're switching colors, then row 6 is the last row for the house color. So here we go. Chain 2 counts as a double crochet, 2 more double crochets in A, start that third one, pause, get my spool unwound, finish it with B. I'm going to work a double crochet, making sure I look over to see if there's any carry. I have a little bit of a reach from my B, so I'm just going to slip my hook underneath it and finish my double crochet, just so there's no reach showing on the back. Finish it with the A, and now I'm going to carry my B for 12 stitches. So 12 stitches in A. I start stitch number 12, work the first half of it with A. I'm going to grab my B that I've been carrying this entire time and just tug on it ever so gently. I want to make sure that there's no bunching up underneath there. This is especially important when you carry it for quite a number of stitches. I'm going to finish that stitch with B. This is my last stitch in B. I work the first half of it. Finish it with A, drop that color completely. So I'm just going to make sure, come here you, make sure that it's not too tight. Roll up that spool, and the graph is finished with 3 double crochet in A. So 3A, 1B, 12A, 1B, 3A. That is the 20 stitches of row 6, 3A, 1B, 12A, 1B, 3A. Or you can look at it like, here's your outside, you're finishing the wall of your house, it's just facing of the house, finishing the wall, and then 3 more A outside of the house. You're going to repeat that 5 more times, and that is row 6. That is the full bottom of the house finished. So now, if you're changing colors between house and roof, you will probably have run out of house color on your spools. If not, just fasten off whatever you have left, or I should say snip it, and then restock your spools with your roof color. I'm going to be doing my house and my roof all in one color. So we've just finished row 6. We are moving on to row 7. Row 7 is really easy too. It is 1 in A, 18 in B, 1 in A, repeat. So that first stitch is technically the chain 2. So let's do that. And I know that sometimes when we have an immediate color change, it confuses a few of you. You don't maybe like the way it looks. You kind of experiment with using the top of the chain 2 in the different color, or maybe using an extra chain. Doesn't matter. Don't worry too much about it, because we will be putting a border along the edge of our blanket, so the very edge stitches aren't really going to show. So don't stress too much about that. Let's turn the blanket around now. And here we go for row 7. My chain 2 counts as a double crochet. It's also the only color in A that I need once. I'm immediately switching to blue. I am going, or I should say B in this case, I'm going to have a reach. So I'm going to start my double crochet. I'm working over top of A. Of course, that first stitch is already used. I'm going into the second one. Sometimes it looks a little funny. Don't worry too much about it. Going to finish that second stitch, and of course the top of it will be in A. If you wanted to switch it before, you can do that, but like I said, don't worry too much about this chain 2 or the way the stitches look at the end. It's not that important. You do, however, want to make sure that you've got a little bit of slack there. And then you've got a reach. So there's that color reach, reaching across. You want to make sure you're working over top of it. So you're going to work a double crochet into the next stitch, making sure that you grab that little reach. And then you can sort of see it there, and I pick it up. I'm going to slip my hook underneath it and double crochet into the next stitch. And that should be enough to cover the reach. So if you pull back and you look, I have like a nice straight edge there, where my roof meets the rest of my house. Now I'm going to double crochet across the top of my house. So I'm just finishing my 17th stitch. 18 is where I change back from color B to color A. I am dropping color B, that's it for that little repeat, and then I finish off the graph with stitch number 20 in A. So there we go. That is 1 in A over here. It's your chain 2 to start, 18 in B, and then 1 in A. And you're going to repeat that all the way across. Remember to pause and rewind up your spools. And I'll see you at the end of row 7. That color change comes up nice and quick. Don't forget, you've got that reach. You want to make sure you're working over top of it and carrying A. That is the end of row 7. We have now established the roof line of our little house. This is in my house color. If you changed colors, this will be the first row where you've got your roof color. So 1A, 18B, 1A, repeat. That is it for row 7. If you find you're running out of yarn on your spool, remember you can always just tie in some more. You just knot in some yarn. If you're unsure about how to do that, we have a tutorial on how to do that. We'll link it down below. Not a big deal. At the end of the row, we're going to chain 2. We're going to turn our blankets. And now we're on to row 8. So let's take a look at that. Row 8. 2A, 3B, 10A, 3B, 2A. So 2A, 3B, 10A, 3B, 2A. Or if you're making the closed roof, 2A, 16B, 2A. So you would not need to change color in here if you're making the closed roof. And remember, that does take up more yarn, so make sure you've got extra yarn on your spools for the closed roof version. But if you're doing the open version like me, 2A, 3B, 10A, 3B, 2A. Repeat. That chain 2 is the first stitch in A. We are going to work into the next stitch, which was a B from the previous row. So let me just unhook my yarn here. And I have to work over top of a little bit of a reach. When you are using, or I should say working into a stitch that's a different color from the previous row, make sure that you kind of grab the color B, and I like to sort of just pick it up and pull it over top of my hook, and then double crochet, or at least start it, because I do have to change colors. But this way, I'm not going to have a reach that would otherwise come up over here. So just remember, as you're working, you're looking for those opportunities to work over top of reaches, should they happen. I've got 3 double crochet in B. I work the first half of the third. Remember, if you're not changing color for the solid roof, you're just going to keep going in B. But for the rest of us, open roof. Now it's 10 in A. There's my 10th stitch in A. I worked the first half of it. I've been working over top of my B. You're carrying B. It's a long stretch, so I'm just going to pull gently on B to make sure there's nothing gapping out back here. Finish that stitch with the B. Now I'm going to carry A. I'm working 3 double crochet, oops, carry the A, work with B, 3 double crochet in B. First half of B. I finish it with A. I'm dropping B for good, and then it's 2 double crochet in A to finish the graph. And let's roll up the remaining yarn on that spool and see what we've got. Okay, so there's my working loop. 2A, 3B, 10A, 3B, 2A, or if you're doing the closed roof, all of this is B. That's the first 20 stitches. You're going to repeat that 5 more times, and I'll see you at the end of row 8. That is row 8. So we've established our roof, and if you are working a solid roof, then these 10 stitches in the middle are all in B, otherwise they're in A like me. We end with 2 in A, that last one is in the top of the chain 2. We're going to chain 2, turn our work nice and carefully. And that moves all of my spools back to the other side, which is currently the front. And let's take a look at row 9. Row 9. Right-handed, you're over here. This is your chain 2. Left-handed, you're over here. This is your chain 2. 4A, 3B, 6A, 3B, 4A, repeat. 4, 3, 6, 3, 4. Or if you're making this solid roof, 4A, and then 12B, 4A, repeat. That's if you're making the solid roof. So just those 2 rows that are different between the open and the close. Let's get going. Chain 2 counts as the double crochet. I need 3 more in A, and because I am working over top of a previously different color, I'm going to need to carry that yarn so that it's available for where I need it. So I'm just going to pick it up. I'm going to lay it up alongside that stitch right there, so right up on top of the stitch. I'm just going to grab it, so with my hook, pull it tightly, continue with the double crocheting, and I'm just working over top of it. It's like carrying it from the other side, so you can see now that there's no messy carries or anything there. So 1, 2, 3. First half of the 4th one, finish it. Now I want 3 double crochet in B. I'm carrying A, of course. Work the first half of that 3rd one in B. Drop B, tug gently on A, finish it with A, and now I'm going to carry B, I'm working 6 double crochet in A. Start the 6th one in A, and I make sure I don't have too much gapping. I do, so I'm going to grab B and I'm going to just pull on it gently. You see how that just sort of smooths everything down? Let's not drop that loop. Finish that stitch with B. Now I want 3 double crochet in the color B. Work the first part of B, and that's it for B. So I'm actually just going to clip that right there. Pull gently on A, finish it with A, and then it's 4 double crochet to finish in A. And then the whole thing starts all over again. So just to recap, 4A, 3B, 6A, 3B, 4A. If you're making the solid roof, this whole area in here is in B. And I'll see you at the end of the row. And that is row 9 complete. We've just gotten all the way to the end. We're going to chain 2, turn our work nice and carefully. Our little spools are getting emptier and emptier as we go. And now the final row of color. This is row 10, so this is the final row that we need our spools. We start with 6A, switch to 8B, 6A. It's the same for everybody, whether you've changed colors for your roof, did a whole roof, whatever. It is 6A, 8B, 6A, repeat. That chain 2 counts as a double crochet. I've got to crochet into the next 5 with A. I'm approaching color from the previous row, so I want to make sure that I pick up that color. I'm just going to undo my spool now. And as I go to work into that stitch, I'm going to pull up the color, lay it across my hook, and make sure I double crochet over top of it. That way I'm carrying the color. I'm not going to end up with a reach across. I'm carrying my B back to where I'm going to need it. So I'm going to start that 6th stitch. I'm going to switch to B. I'm going to work 8 double crochet now in B. I'm going to start that 8th double crochet in B, tug gently on A to make sure there's no bunching up, finish it with A. That's it for the rest of that yarn. I'll just take my spool out, put it aside, and it's 6 more in A to finish the 20 stitch graph. And there we go. Let's take a look at that. Okay, that is the graph. 20 stitches represented. 6A, 8B, 6A. That's the whole roof done. That's the last you need of your color. You can just sort of let that tail hang to the back, and you can finish off the rest of your houses. We've got one more row left to go. And that is row 10 all wrapped up. So our entire house is finished. Our roof is closed in. All of your spools are now finished. You should just have some tails hanging out the back. You can trim anything that's really long. Remember, you want to weave in the extras. We have one more row to do. Let's chain 2 and turn. And this is just double crochet with A all the way across. 120 stitches all with A. And I will see you at the end of the row. And that is row 11, all complete. You should have 120 stitches all the way across, all in your color A. Remember now, you want to not fasten off if you are not changing your background color or your color A. If you are changing colors, feel free to fasten off. For me, I'm going to put my little safety pin back in place. That will keep my loop from unraveling on me. And I'm going to take a moment to weave all my little tails in. So those are my bee tails. And then our little houses for the Fair Isle month of May are all done. And there you go, a little town to call your own. I love this picture. I just love little houses. I was so excited and I had so much fun designing this month's house. I went through a lot of iterations, but I have to say it was tough. I really didn't know if I was going to go with the open roof. I love the look of the closed roof. This one is just so cute too. I almost alternated between them, between the open roof and the closed roof all the way across. But my desire to be uniform won out and I went with the open roof. But I made up several of these little samplers and I have a few more ideas for even a few more houses. So you might see a few more of these on an upcoming live stream. And I was originally going to make a blanket with all the little samplers, like a little small kind of throw blanket with all the samplers for this year's blanket. But I have got so many of them now. I've got more than I need for a blanket. So I might have a couple other little projects in mind to use these things with. Anyway, that's a project for another time. We hope you enjoyed making this month's Fair Isle style home pattern along with us. We hope you've been enjoying the 2023 calendar blanket project too, and we will see you soon here on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a great week. Bye, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Mr. and Stitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.